Hey, everybody, we're back on the Infused show. Mike, Francesca, here we are again.
We are here. Good to see you guys.
Always good to be back. Always good to be seen.
Good to see you guys as well. Yeah. But you know what? I got a message for you this time. We're back, but this time we're seniors, and we're going to rule the school. It is the back to school edition of the Infused show today, guys. And I'm really excited about this one. Being a former educator, Francesca being a former educator, and Mike, I think you've written off a considerable amount of tuition checks to several institutions with your three boys.
That's right.
But I don't know if our audience knows, right up north in the Keystone state of Pennsylvania, the state is littered with amazing academic institutions. And I'm sure the two of you agree, as a lot of people do in our community. We all recognize education as a critical component in overcoming an antiquated stigma that surrounds the plant, that surrounds the culture. So I am so happy that today we are joined by this gentleman who's serving as the program director of cannabis studies. God, I love saying that. It's so great that we're at this point, the program director of cannabis studies at the Pennsylvania Institute of Technology. Warm Infused show. Welcome to Mr. Lou Gianotti. Lou, thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Hello, everyone.
Oh, it's so great to have you. And I mean it. It's so good to say those words and attach them to an academic program that we're studying cannabis, that young people are being. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
a lot of work. Lou, I wanted to bring this up first, and how this interview came about. It was actually, I think, a colleague of yours or friend of yours walking a trade show in Atlantic City, New Jersey, at the Cannatech Emerging Industries Show. Is that something that you're able to get to yet? Have you been out on the trade show circuit talking about the work you're doing?
Yes, somewhat. Try to get out as much as we can. Limitations with time, and then we're a small school and we don't have a budget that lets me go out to the Vegas shows every other week or so.
Yeah,
and there's so many. I mean, it seems like. Talk about how the industry has, the cannabis industry has changed things. It seems like the convention business has just taken off. It's every other week there's a or a cannabis festival. That's becoming certainly an industry
in and of itself in a lot of ways.
Constant, the emails coming in, this conference and that conference and this whatever. But we do try to get out there. It's a fast evolving business, fast evolving science, and the only way to really keep up is to talk to people who are in it. So and that's what happens.
Glad to hear that.
And academics, you kind of get walled off a little bit. You have to see what the industry is doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
it goes both ways. The cannabis industry gets into its own bubble, so it's good to have that education piece always integrated in.
That's true.
Yeah, we love it because it puts us in contact with people. It puts us in contact with people like yourself, and then we get to talk to them here on Infused. So you mentioned that industry evolving. Let's talk about your particular evolution in pathway into cannabis, Lou. What were your earliest experiences with the plant? And tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. Attended high school. I'm a child of the 70s. 1970s, not 1870s, and went to high school in the 70s, and like any other good student at the time, used marijuana recreationally quite often, and I'd say from maybe the ages of 16 to college, 21 or so, just a very frequent user. Enjoy it, enjoy the plant, enjoy the experience, like so many. Had to, once I had finished college, I had to kind of put that aside. I went to pharmacy school, and then once as a pharmacist, you're subject to random drug screenings. And I love cannabis, but I don't love it that much to lose my pharmacist license and my home, my wife, and my children. So I had about a 35-year break in cannabis, unfortunately. But in college, I did have an experience on more of the medical side of cannabis. As a freshman, I was playing basketball in the gym. Had gone up for a rebound. I'm an awful basketball player. I'd gone up for rebound and came down and really just rolled my ankle. I thought I broke, and I just kind of limped back to the dorm. And like any other responsible college student, I immediately had a beer and a joint.
Nice.
And I found, like,
Nice.
really within an hour or so, I was able to walk on my ankle like it didn't even happen. It was
wow.
It was odd. And then I had another experience a little after that, helping a friend carry a bathtub. He was refinishing his bathtub, up 2 flights of stairs.
Oh.
And hurt my back a bit. Really felt that that shock, like I pulled something. And I just had remembered what had happened, years earlier. Same thing, and it happened again.
Wow.
I had almost, within an hour or two, almost total pain relief. It was remarkable. So again, working as a pharmacist for 35 years, my job, I was a regional director. I was involved in opening pharmacies, licensure, working with the trades, getting them built, getting pharmacists hired, getting them trained, all that side of things, keeping them compliant, and did that for a while. I got involved in recruiting for a while as well, but that experience was so helpful. When the law changed in Pennsylvania to allow medical marijuana, I was contacted by a gentleman, Keith Morgan, who is the owner of, at the time, was the owner of Holistic Industries. They do business as Liberty dispensaries in Pennsylvania. And he was in the process of license applications. He already had 1 vertical license in Pennsylvania.
Okay.
To grow, extract, and retail, 3 retails. And had a couple other applications in other areas, and needed someone who could take the business from the ground up. And when I met him, we had gone to a location. It was in a strip mall in southeastern Pennsylvania, and it was studs and a dirt floor, and really got involved from that point on with the build out, licensing, inspection, hiring, training, marketing, operation, and did that. He had a license to open up, his vertical license enabled him to open up 3 dispensaries. We got 3 dispensaries up and running, maybe 4 months or something, really. But that's what I know. But I knew how to do that because of my pharmacy experience. So got him up and running. Working on he had another license out in the Altoona, Pennsylvania area. That's for those who know that area, kind of the northwest side of Pennsylvania. And working on the same thing there. Got a call from the president of Pennsylvania Institute of Technology, a gentleman, Will Robinson. And they wanted to start a cannabis studies program. And my interest, maybe because of my pharmacy background, maybe because of my own medical experience with cannabis, and probably even more so with my experience working in dispensaries, the need for educated employees, educated compliance law is so important, and then educated, to go beyond, what do you want today, an indica, and so there was a need for that, and got involved with the program. Really took the program from the ground up. I like building things, and this was another opportunity for me to start something from scratch. We started with a cannabis science program. I'm sorry, cannabis studies program, and then it was cannabis health under that. People were looking to go in more of the healthcare side of cannabis, working with veterans for PTSD or children with autism, or now more and more you're seeing some surgical groups turn to cannabis to avoid using opiates. Cannabis business, people looking to be, whether it's sales or managing dispensaries. We did that for 2 years, and then after that we brought in a cannabis horticulture program. People who are looking to grow, extract. We have a hemp license from the state, and we have grow tents on campus, and so we're where we are now. So it's been as a child of the 70s, when you talk about, can't believe you're seeing such a evolution of cannabis. I can't believe it. It's remarkable. So
Yeah, you come a long way
journey.
from
wow.
those joints. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
It's funny, in this business, in the cannabis industry that we work in with our company, the Sales Joint, we hear the phrase all the time, Lou. I'll give you an example. We do a lot of work in Oklahoma, and it's the Wild West out here as far as the industry is concerned. People love to throw that terminology around. It's true in a lot of ways, but I mean, you literally saw kind of the Wild West scenario of the early days of Pennsylvania dispensaries. That had to be an amazing experience to get that thing started, and the progress that you achieved in just a few months. Did you expect that, or did you?
Well, I had certainly got help. I had hired employees, and
Sure.
You certainly you learn to hire good people, learn to delegate, that part. And my management experience prior to that helped. But fortunate, and so my experience in the pharmacy operations things, opening pharmacies, which I don't know how many I had opened over the years, maybe 100, maybe more.
Wow.
And then as a recruiter, I was able to hire good people and just built a great team. And
it's like the East isn't the Wild West. Even if we have a dirt floor starting space, it's like the licensing that's set up. And I think like the structure that is in the East Coast markets is so different than what you're seeing in these free markets in Oklahoma, New Mexico, and things like that. I don't know if you've had any experience with any of those markets, and if you have an opinion on, what works and what you would change if you were doing it all over again today.
I do see on the East Coast, whether it's in the two states that I bring to attention here, I've been learning from perhaps from some of the I don't want to call them mistakes on the West Coast, because how do you really define a mistake in this industry?
Right.
Part of the process.
So well said.
It's a business of risk takers. It's a new industry, but you look at Massachusetts, some of the progressiveness of Massachusetts, and recognizing the market where they just a year ago, now they provide home delivery of cannabis, and we address those users, whether recreationally or medically, to the people who are afraid to be seen in the dispensary because they might run into their kid's third grade teacher.
Yeah. Or their high school students.
Or their high school, all that, exactly. Yes.
College students, yeah.
And then you look at New Jersey, where they're really perhaps starting to look at the equity licenses that really is a great way of addressing some of the inequities, legal inequities over the years. Is it reparations? Maybe. But I see that as a very positive step to bring history and perhaps some experience into the industry. My only pause with that is, and this is speaking as an educator, to grant an equity license to give people a little cut in line to go to the head of the line, perhaps to work in the industry or to get a license, which is fine, but you're not giving them the education they need to do that. So what made you a great black market dealer? Maybe so to be so successful at it that you found yourself into legal trouble does not always translate into operating within a highly regulated industry. And I find that's another place for what the education side of the business can do. It can keep people out of future financial trouble, and it keep people out of future legal trouble by understanding the rules and the regulations, how the business, and just basically how to manage a business. So there was an article a while back, maybe 2 months ago, in the New York Times about it that did an excellent job bringing that out to really more needs to be done. I guess that's what that's
so
all.
Is that your biggest what do I want to call it, motivator, or thing that really drives you in both in your experience with the dispensary and now with the Pennsylvania Institute of Technology? Is that education, or that gap in education, is that a big driver for you? Because I mean, you left a great career. You were very successful as a pharmacist. So to take that leap of faith and to leave everything behind and go from an established career to something that's a bit of a you know, a big risk, really, frankly. You know, I'm sure that wasn't an easy decision. So is that one of the big drivers for you?
It's one of, I can't, I like to say that, it's the number one issue. There's so many. And it's the marijuana industry, which is so new and so exciting. And you want to see people out there that do it properly and correctly. You want to get away from some of the misinformation that's out there, because I don't, you can't, stigma is so strong toward marijuana that the only way that I see you can break down stigma is through education, telling people, historically why there's been cannabis prohibition now medically for the last 85 years or so, but why it's been recognized medically for the last 5,000. You have to, you've got to get an education breaks down stigma. It brings more responsible players into the business, because you're still operating within a federally illegal marketplace, and people are still, even with all the adult use changes and medical changes, people are still getting arrested for marijuana, and they get too comfortable sometimes with how they see each state's laws becoming so lax that they find themselves sometimes unknowingly in trouble. So that is so. But there's, what, Mike? There's many reasons why I'm involved in it. But the other part of it is, let's not kid ourselves. It's fun. Marijuana. I like. I think marijuana is a great drug recreationally. I prefer it to alcohol.
Yeah.
I prefer it to, I like it. And so many people do.
In that you mentioned a 35-year gap from college to when I guess you left the pharmacy world. Did your tolerance drop at all during that 35 years?
No,
Wow.
no, a funny story. A funny story is, so I left pharmacy, and I was I had just been hired to work at Holistic, and I'm in my wife and I were just bought a new home, and it was a Saturday morning about 8 o'clock in the morning, and I had to meet a painter to come and look at painting and give me an estimate. And he asked me what I did, and I told him, and and he said, oh, and he goes, oh, my wife has chronic pain. I wish she would use cannabis. It's so helpful. He says, I've been using it as a painter. He says, I use it all the time, because aches and pains from painting. And he was probably, an older gentleman, such as myself. And we talked a little bit about, medically, well, I said, look, when your wife's ready, perhaps she'll try it. And then he just said, he goes, and he was Australian. And he said, so, mate, you want to get high? And I'm like, and I hadn't been high now in 35 years. And I'm like, yeah, well, okay.
Sure.
So, I smoked a joint with this guy, and it was very good. It was very good marijuana. And I took 2 hits at this joint, and he just drove away. I'm like, how?
Yeah.
And like, boom, I went inside, and the house is empty. And I called my wife immediately. I'm like, Maria, you're not going to believe what just happened. So I just thought, I'm really high right now. And she says, well, stay off the ladder. Stay off the ladder. All right. So I was doing some painting as well. So I figured, geez, what can I do where I'm not going to get into trouble? So I figured, I'll just paint doors. So I'm painting doors. And now I'm like, I painted right through lunch. It's probably like, I've been painting now. I didn't even know how long I had been painting. I was like, and I was starving.
Of course.
And I live very close to a deli. It's a Wawa for all your Pennsylvania.
There we go.
Yeah.
Hoagie Fest is
and I'm
in
like,
the house.
and it's only like maybe 100 yards away.
Oh,
and I'm like, I'm gonna be lunch or whatever. And I looked at my watch. It was 10 o'clock in the morning, and I thought, and so Mike, I basically picked up exactly where I left off the last time I had smoked a joint. I was, total distortion of time and
That is great.
hungry, like, of course I went there and just bought, everything.
Everything. Wawa is the mecca
And
of the
so
munchies.
did my tolerance change? No, but it did bring back a very fun memory.
That's a great story.
I feel
That
like we
is.
I feel like we
10
need
a.m.
the applause effect here. And if Frank can go back in post-production, that last segment of the Infused show with the Australian painter, that was brought to you by Great Barrier Reefer Dispensary in Oklahoma. Our friends out in Oklahoma from Australia, Great Barrier Reefer Dispensary. That was fantastic.
If it wasn't for stigma, right now I'd flash the name of the painter and
right.
estimates and all that, but we're not there yet. But
Yeah.
Getting back into it again was fun. It was fun.
Speaking of stigmas, Lou, I mean, you worked in pharmacy, and I know being in cannabis, you hear a lot about big pharma being the big bad wolf that's knocking at the door and it's going to blow the cannabis house in unless we build it with bricks. So did you face any of that friction when you crossed over from pharmacy to cannabis, or do you find that you can leverage it so effectively that and you're playing for the team now that you want to play with or that you want to play for, and you're able to cross over and kind of build bridges? I mean, is this a two-party system of pharmacy and cannabis, or
I don't know with my experience. I don't know if my experience in retail pharmacy really played into that. I mean, you look at the statistics, when there's a medical legalization of cannabis, you typically see opiate pain relievers prescriptions drop by somewhere between 20 and 25% or so.
Mm-hmm.
You look at how the laws are been pretty harsh against opiates lately with prescribing and day supplies and limitations, and a doctor can't really prescribe usually, or insurance companies won't pay for any more than about a 2 or 3 day supply of an opiate, without all kinds of special approvals and all that. But going back to the pharmacy world, Pennsylvania is a state that requires either a pharmacist, a physician assistant, or a physician to be on site at all times during the opening, or to be available at all times when the dispensary is open. And the one thing a bit of a challenge I felt was you're requiring pharmacists to be available for consultation, but pharmacists coming out of the pharmacy world are not familiar with cannabis. Now it's changing a bit, but it's not covered in medical school. It's not covered in pharmacy school. And it's an industry that's been policed with random drug tests to keep pharmacists from using cannabis. So you're bringing in maybe someone with medical background, but not at all with cannabis medical background. And I feel that's another area.
There's a gap there that needs to be
changing.
addressed.
I mean, you're already seeing, pharmacists are required to perform continuing education to keep their license active. You're seeing those medical marijuana programs now being offered, and then you are seeing pharmacy schools. University of Maryland, as one of note, is bringing in a cannabis studies program into their pharmacy school, and Wilkes University up in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, has just started a 4-year program to kind of run alongside their pharmacy program. Well, I find that to be to really be another big game changer, where you're now seeing, whether it's the American Medical Association, the Nursing Association, all endorsing medical marijuana, and now you're starting to see the legitimate, recognizing it as a legitimate science. So time, it's just
I mean, imagine what it'll be like 5 years from now or 10 years from now, how things will be drastically different than today or 5 years ago.
Yeah. And things have moved very quickly, but not quick enough.
Right.
I think that's marijuana's distortion of time, much like my 10 a.m. breakfast.
Good callback.
But there is really a lot of progress. but the next
Yeah.
step, the federal government to destate
Yeah.
marijuana.
So do you think, in all this experience of opening retail locations for pharmacies, for dispensaries, do you have any kind of quick tips? Because we certainly work with people, whether that's people coming off trade show floors, consultations, anything at all, that they want to get into the dispensary world. They want to own a dispensary, run a dispensary, work in a dispensary, something along those lines. And so have you found universally important traits? And I'm sure, your education program covers, the essentials. So could you give us kind of a high level view of what makes a successful opening, or how do you successfully open a dispensary and run one?
Love that.
I think there are two questions in there, perhaps.
I usually do that. I stack
Oh,
them
right.
in there.
Yeah.
So.
I'll give you
Double
two
down.
answers. So, an advice for people to get involved in the business. How can they prepare to get into the business? Because right now there's a lot of on-the-job training. The one thing, there are some decent programs out there. Dustin Sulek has a pretty decent course that he offers online. I find that to be pretty reputable. There's a number of them that are not. I think just to look at an overview before getting in the industry, there are some of those certificate programs that are helpful. Our program, it's an associate's degree. It's more than if you're looking to work in a dispensary. I love bud tenders. They make the world go round. But our program here is not that. If you're looking to get into a more managerial role, perhaps really having a pretty large understanding of the history and politics and licensing and all that goes into the cannabis industry, then our program and programs like ours are probably okay. The one thing I'm always cautious about, and I give my students never-ending grief about, is be careful of the internet. Reddit's fine, all that, but I come out of more of a traditional science background, and if you want to learn something, you get a book, a reputable book. You make sure that you're getting reputable information. The internet is filled with unvetted information. No matter what it is, it could be cannabis. It could be how to fix a flat on your car. But it's unvetted and it's new to I think, and it can cause some misinformation, because traditionally, and I guess I'm more traditional, I come out of that world, is someone has an idea, someone has a thought, someone has whatever it may be, and then it's usually vetted through the government agencies or through academics or through the church or through some specialist will either call bullshit or not. But there's a vetting process before it gets published. Now, it's really all information can really fall into the Wild West. It doesn't help.
Yeah.
Trying to put out reasonable, accurate information with marijuana when there's so much unvetted information out there, it doesn't help break down that stigma. So
yeah,
maybe I'm a little old-fashioned that way. But.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, that's a very true statement. But one of the things that Francesca had buried in her question that I want to make sure we get is, because I wrote this exact same one down, Francesca, because we were into this a lot. Like, as background, one of the real fringe benefits of our job is we visit a lot of dispensaries and we visit a lot of grows. So it's really fun and interesting to see what people do differently, what they kind of do the same, and all that sort of stuff. So as you were setting up these dispensaries in Pennsylvania, was there any keys that are critical components that you said every time we need to do these 2 or 3 things to make this dispensary a success?
I just think caring people who can counsel and guide people through the process of what strain is and formulation is best for them. Because you don't want to, it's an expensive product, and you don't want it, by providing people guidance, how to use it, what formulation to use, and strain. You don't want a lot of trial and error because it's expensive for people. And you don't want people who are trying it now for the first time to have a bad experience. You don't want to, you don't want to give them something that they're coming in for something, say, for anxiety. And you're not going to give them something that's so strong it's going to create anxiety. It's that part of cannabis. It can tip you over either way. So it's important to listen to people, and to make a reasonable, accurate recommendation. But then it involves understanding not just sativa, indica, and not just looking at THC percent. I mean, people need to understand the total cannabinoid profile of the product. Your CBD THC ratios, which that's the yin and the yang of cannabis, and then your terpene profiles that are also so important. People, you need, at a minimum, you have to understand what you're recommending, and then at a minimum, you don't need to know every medical condition what somebody's using it for, but you should at least understand the product to have a general idea of what the patient is asking for.
So good employee training, I guess, is bottom line with the bud tenders, and making sure they're up to speed and strong in that area. Yeah,
and recreationally, I don't know if it's as crucial, but medically, I feel that it is. But again,
oh yeah, medically, it's critical.
And I find it in recreational, it is important. I don't know if critical is accurate, but it's important because even if I'm going into a dispensary in Colorado or California or somewhere, and I'm like, I want something that's going to make me feel more giggly, elated, creative, and active, versus I'm looking for something to help me go to sleep, or I just need something that'll kind of chill me out for a while. Those are still effects I'm pursuing. So the understanding of the plant, the profiles, the effects of it is still important, in that even if it's not a patient care issue, it's still a customer care issue, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess perhaps, going back to your previous question, what really motivates me to be in the educational side of cannabis, it's that. I mean, you want to make sure that people who are turning to, I don't want to call it an alternative therapy, but people who are turning to marijuana, and maybe for the first time, you want to make sure they're having a good outcome, because you don't want to create a lot of naysayers out there. Oh, I tried it; it was awful. And that doesn't help the industry, and it doesn't help the business either.
Right.
Your business has a reputation of not understanding what they're recommending.
Yeah, missing that mark.
Yeah, and the internet is cruel to dispensaries that don't do that.
No doubt.
Yeah, you see some really harsh reviews, and maybe deserve it. I don't know, but
not everybody can survive, and that's the one thing we see in, especially a state like Oklahoma, free market state, where there's tens of thousands of licenses. Only the strong are going to survive over time, and we're seeing that very, very much so in Oklahoma. Other states, we're seeing more of a consolidation, whittling down of some of the weaker players. And I think education, consistency of staff is the other one that we keep kind of seeing as a real critical notion in terms of reducing employee turnover, because to keep training people and keep training bud tenders over and over again, you're never going to get a bud tender that has enough longevity and expertise to really continue to be like the in-house guru that people trust and come to and want to talk to all the time.
Yeah. Nick, it looks like you're about to say something.
No, go right ahead.
The one thing, and talking, I guess this goes back to vetting. The fact that banks really don't want to do business in the marijuana industry. Some do. It's fine. But, the ones who want to fill out, the suspicious activity reports, a pasquillion times a day and charge crazy money. That's a whole separate industry, and that's not. But until the federal government deschedules cannabis, and now banks are free to do business with them without jeopardizing their federal insurance and all that. Banks are interesting betters. Whether you're opening up a sub shop, or you're opening up an ice cream parlor, or you're opening up a marijuana dispensary, because you have to go in with a business plan. You have to go in with people who are qualified. They want to see your background. They're vetting you. Are you going to be a successful business? Because as much as banks love to loan money, because that's a good part of their business, to loan money and make money that way. Banks don't want to be in the cannabis business. They don't want the business turned over to them. A bank will loan money for a mortgage, and if you don't pay the mortgage, they take the house. But banks don't want to be realtors.
They don't want the illegal asset either.
But banks don't want to be in the marijuana business either.
Pre-rolls.
So again, will that day come when you're not going to see this wild market out with licenses and things? You're going to see people that are getting money from banks and properly vetted. And private money is still fine, but the money invested in these businesses, a lot of the times, especially on the horticultural side of things, I mean, it's, they want to see that you can grow a lot of plant. You have the ability to grow a lot. And what happens is you grow a lot to get investors, and by growing a lot, you're creating increasing supply of the product that's decreasing the value of your product, and now you can't pay back your investors. It's
slippery slope.
It's a slippery slope. And so these are things in time, and whether, right now it's, the vetting process is perhaps, are you just running a good dispensary? But there's more. Banking can help the industry, when allowed to do so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, you'll probably edit that out, I'm sure.
I don't think
I'm in the cannabis business, and I'm promoting banks.
We're not going to cut.
As long as you're not promoting credit card processors, we're good.
No.
Mike, did I tell you I met the guy who has the workaround to that at the last trade show?
Oh,
the one guy.
finally,
yeah.
Lou, I had a question, because even being in the education game for so long, I remember vividly having around this time of year. Oh, by the way, you have to come up with a different summer reading test for student X because their mother didn't like this novel choice you made. We used to get blowback all the time about content and things like that. Was there any kind of blowback when P.I.T made the call to say we're going to have this program of cannabis studies? Was there any backlash that you guys experienced?
Not at all. Not at all.
Good.
They have been just terrific. I mean, they have just been great. They review the course. This is not the course doesn't teach you how to dab. I mean, we're not teaching people how to roll joints. We go over the body systems, anatomy, physiology, diseases of the body, how it's being typically treated, and how cannabis can help. And not how cannabis cures all, how cannabis has a role in colitis or many different, the many varied illnesses where cannabis is shown to be effective. It has been that kind of a program. We don't go too rogue. We do go over devices and things. We go over why one dab nail is better than the other. We do go over, vape devices. We do, because you have to understand. This is when the students don't like me so much, but you have to understand. If you're vaping flour, say you're using a Da Vinci, product to vape flour, or it's a volcano or something. Vaping flour, you need to. The patient needs to know how to use that device. It's like a diabetic comes into a pharmacy and they're buying their insulin, but they also have to buy the device to measure their blood sugar. You've got to show them how to do that, or they can't care for themselves. If you don't show people how people can use different devices, not only can they not care for themselves, they're not going to dose themselves properly, and they're gonna have a bad experience.
Right.
So,
well said. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of independent study going on outside of the classroom by the students.
we have, there's some courses on dosing, and you talk about, there's math problems to it. You have you have flour, 17% flour, and a patient's going to roll a joint. How many milligrams of THC per puff? Students they hate that. But you have to know that. You have to know.
Do you put in there like the patient's a big hitter or a small hitter, like that part of the equation?
Yeah, lung capacity, how long your experienced user can hold a hit longer, and you do go over that. You do, because you have to. I know it reeks of recreational uses, but
it's important.
To think that it is important. It is important. They have to understand how to use that product. Somebody wants to make, you're in business and you want to make brownies, and you want each brownie to be 10 milligram, and now you've got flour that is 15% THC. How much flour are you? What are you going to use? And you have to know. Don't put on the label it's a 10 milligram brownie, and it's not. They hate that. So.
What about on the business side of the lessons that you teach? Because certainly that's, where we do a lot of our work is putting, the business behind people's cannabis businesses. Because what we see is, you have farmers that love to grow. You have people that are passionate about creating something, but are not trained in how to run a business or how to set up for a healthy business. And so then they can hire us as consultants and all of that. And then we come in and be that piece, that missing piece for them. So I'm really interested in what it is on the business curriculum that you guys cover. Is it focused on dispensaries, focused on cultivators, focused on lab testing, or is it broad enough to apply to any business they want to get into?
I hate to give an answer. It's probably all of the above, but really when we have a retail course, it starts with how to fill out an application to get a license.
And that's a good start.
And in Pennsylvania,
whole course.
A license application is somewhere around 200 to 250 pages long.
Right.
And it's 3 lectures to get through it. And how to complete the application. This is another course the students don't like so much, but you've got to have an advisory board. You have to show that your hiring practices. You have to the dimensions of your business to go through the application step by step, and then to understand the law. You don't want people getting fined because they're not complying with the law. They have to read the rules and the regulations and know the law. Don't get into the business without understanding. It's like opening a liquor store and not understanding what the regulations are with taxation and your liabilities and all that. So we go through the application process. Why they're asking a certain question about ownership, why they're asking a question about your security system, to know how many cameras you have, to know what procedures you have in place for just employee hiring practices. You start there, and so now you know the rules of the game, and now you can begin to build your business. What is then you go to a mission statement. What are you doing? What is your business? Who are you? And what is your business all about? And then you're working your way down to, and then the fun stuff, how to divide, how to make a logo. What's your label going to say? What your uniform's going to say? Those are all fun things that people want to jump to. What's the name of our business? What's going to be the name of our business? Like what? Well, let's back up a lot and let's find out exactly. Once you go through the process, now all of a sudden you come out at the other end. We have a capstone course where the students, it's right from what is their business going to be, and then at the end they have to present a whole PowerPoint presentation like they were presenting to a bank, their business plan.
Oh, that's great.
That's fun.
Yeah,
that's fun.
really like it. At the end they like it, but it's hard. You have to kind of work with them each week. But so that that's our business side of things. You take them through SWOT analysis and all these things.
Yeah.
It's not Harvard. It's not Harvard Business School, but it's enough to get people to give them at least an understanding of what they need to do and to keep them from making mistakes.
Are they most surprised by the pace and the amount of things they have to get through to go to where they thought they knew? Is that it? Like they're like, oh, I thought I could
Shocked.
just
It's not
name a
surprise.
business and get going.
It's not surprise.
Pure
It's
shock.
total, it's shock, because they all, not they all do, and I think it's wonderful. The horticulture side of things, people want to be craft growers, and that's wonderful. On the business side of things, people want coffee shops. That's wonderful as well. But when they go through the process, they're glad to have the information, even if they go off and work in a dispensary. They're typically the students from our program, or students that have done the work with this, not just our program. We don't have the exclusive right on anything. But they typically are the more informed people working in the dispensary. They know why they can't, or they
A
can
perspective.
Yeah, they know, why in Pennsylvania, why do the signs not have a marijuana dispensary on the building? Why can't I call it a marijuana dispensary? But because the bank probably holds a mortgage on that building, and by putting that on there, the bank's going to call the mortgage on the landlord. And now all of a sudden, now it's a good small example of the rules of the game.
Well, and the beauty of the program also is that they get to learn this without putting their own money at risk or investor money at risk, which so many people jump into this business and don't make a go of it. And learn on the fly and fail on the fly. And where these students are getting real world experience and be able to model through something like that and understand what they like and what they don't like. But then if they do want to pursue it, they're going to be better qualified and better chance of success. So that's really, really exciting. Great work.
And you don't want to do that. You don't want to borrow $100,000 from family, or say, to go into this business and then find out that you didn't get a license, or you got your license revoked, and so now you have no business, and now you have $100,000 in debt. That's what are you gonna? So what do you do now?
Thanksgiving is rough when that happens.
Yeah. So you're you're right. Yeah. You're at the kids' table. Forever.
Banned.
Yeah.
Francesca, did you see Mike Patterson's eyes lighting up when he's describing the course, the different business courses? I could just see the wheels turning. Guest lecturer. Guest Professor Mike Patterson.
This is Frank actually messaged me. He just put his resignation. He's going back to school.
We've been very fortunate. We have a number of people that were in the business that are adjunct professors for us and give some of these lectures. So we've been very, very fortunate. Not just me. I'm making it sound like it's me. But we probably have about 5, 6, 7 instructors total, and each come to us. I have a gentleman that works in the extraction side of things. He's doing CO2 extraction all day. He's doing that, and he's a degree in chemistry, and he teaches that extraction course for us. I have people that have managed to work for in the sales side of things, dispensary management. I will mention Stephen Miller, who oversees our horticulture program. He's a master grower out of Colorado. Won the Cannabis Cup a few years back. Wow. He is great. He's just
impressive team.
He's so highly regarded, and he's just such a great guy. Honestly, he's
impressive team and impressive program. I mean, and again, for our audience, 3 tracks of study with cannabis health therapy, cannabis horticulture. That's a cool one too, because I remember jumping online, and you had live feed up of different grow operations. It's such an exciting thing to behold for me, and as well as the cannabis business track that we've been talking about for the past couple of minutes. It is absolutely impressive, and I'm grateful that someone like yourself is overseeing a program that's doing this much good, Lou.
And I'm grateful you have me on your program, because working together, information is so vital to make sure that the business moves forward responsibly.
Yes,
absolutely.
We all benefit.
Absolutely.
100%.
Whether you're a rec user or a medical user, You want to make sure that it's being run by people who know the business, know the rules, and being run responsibly.
Yeah, it like you said in the very beginning, that is the key to defeating the stigma, because we have to do all this work to overcome it, to take it from where it's been for almost a century to where we know the truth is now, and to rush that or to do that in any misinformation or disinformation way, it just does nothing but hurt the cause that we're all trying to work towards. So yeah, definitely kudos to you, to your students, and to the program at P.I.T that just is doing all the right things to help end that stigma intelligently.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
Francesca, you usually have a question, a fun question as we wrap
Brace
things
yourself.
up with
Brace
our
yourself.
guests. Do you have one? Do you have one today?
I do. I have a question about what you would rather. So would you rather be able to eat anything you want in any quantity at any time without it ever adversely affecting your health, or be able to fall asleep, stay asleep, and wake up on command, have total control over your sleep habits?
Wow.
Oh my God.
Lou, you're up.
Well, usually I overeat to the point where I fall asleep on the couch, so I get both.
2 in 1.
I get both. But if I have to have one or the other, sleep is really important. But I love food too. Can I have another question? I don't like that one.
They only get weirder.
Yeah. All right. I'll go with sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll go with sleep.
It's a good answer.
Was that the right answer?
I don't know if there's a right one. I think it's just good. Nick, what about you?
Having several animals at home that wake me up whenever they deem breakfast time. I would rather have control over my sleep and put all the other things to bed. There's a pun.
Yeah, there you go. Mike, you look deep in
I can recommend a strain for that, Nick, if you'd like.
Thank you, Lou.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, not at all.
I think I'm going with the food end of this one.
Really?
Yeah, I'm going food. I got it. That to me is so tempting to be able to just eat what I wanted to and not gain weight and not have like bad health. I mean,
no heart issues. No
yeah, that
anything.
sounds pretty fun.
Yeah, and to not have to worry about nutrition versus not have to worry about sleep is really, really tough. I think I got to go with where my struggle is, and I think I struggle more with sleep than I do with nutrition. So I want to be able to just fall asleep on command instead of taking forever to fall asleep, to know it's like, put me out like a light. I love it. Yeah,
it's compelling. It's compelling.
It is. But I mean, that food is a close second.
I know Frank's answer.
Frank, we got to hear it though.
I think my answer might shock you. I'm gonna have to go with sleep, and I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna tell you why. If you told me I could eat whatever I want and not get adverse effects from it, I don't think I'm gonna have a social life. I don't think I'm gonna go outside. I'm just gonna be eating all damn day and become like a hermit. So I have to go with the sleep. Plus, tossing and turning sucks.
Yeah,
it
does. That is shock. Frank is our resident foodie in a way. Like he just is an appreciator of all good foods and
all things cutlets.
Yes.
Yeah, all things related to cutlets. And this one's for Frank. Today, the Infused Show was brought to you by our new fake sponsor, retail partner, Stoner's Pot Palace. Shop Stoner's Pot Palace for all your cooking. Oh, it's cookware. That's blatant false advertising. Blatant false advertising. No, in all seriousness, today our guest has been Lou Gianotti from the Pennsylvania Institute of Technology, Director of Cannabis Studies Programs. Go to www.pit.edu. Look under programs for their cannabis studies programs. It's an impressive program. Lou is an impressive educator and advocate. And listen, we're so grateful for your time today, Lou, and for everything the educators have done. You guys have been through hell for the past couple of years, adjusting to everything in this world. So thanks for being our guest today, and thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Lou.
Awesome. Thank you, Lou. This was fun.
It was fun. All right, Infused listeners, we're going to see you next time from Delaware. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye.